Hello, Advanced Expository Writing students. So this begins a new adventure for all of us. It's been such a great class this semester. I hope moving online won't change our dynamic too much. And with those hopes, I'm sending you this video greeting, and every class period, I'll be sending you a video and giving you just a quick overview of what to expect in the class, since most of our work will be watching video tape lectures or PowerPoints or video clips online from here on out. So I want to begin by introducing you to giving you an overview of what we're going to be doing in class today. So we're going to kind of take a farewell look at Tool 22 at the ladder of abstraction, not a farewell look and that we're saying goodbye. You should be conscientiously, intentionally, purposefully applying that ladder as you write. Am I at the bottom of the ladder? Am I at the top of the ladder? Or is my writing suffering because I'm just hanging out in the middle? But we're going to add Tool 23 to that, which is called, the chapter's title is Tune Your Voice. But I like to approach this as our voice, the writer's voice, being our tuning fork. And what do I mean by that? It means like you need to be reading your writing aloud, reading the writing of others aloud, so you can learn to identify voice and see where that voice is coming from, so you can hear your own voice. So, and I have a bit of a backstory with that, because my whole family knows that I'm not very good at talking on the phone. I text, or I write even old-fashioned letters and send them by snail mail. And I'm hard to catch on the phone. And this is why, because when I was like 11 years old, we had to do audio recordings, tape recordings in one of my grade school classes. And the teacher played everything that we recorded out loud for the whole class. And when the class heard mine, everyone burst out laughing. And it's because everyone goes, "Oh, she sounds like such a baby." It's because I do have, it comes across as an accent to many people, but I have a bit of a speech therapeutic issue. So ever since then, that one experience, obviously I've been scarred for life. And I've been very shy of wanting to ever hear myself, my own voice, aloud. And that can actually be a handicap for a writer. So writing, let's get down to brass tacks here. I've been defining writing as an act of perception all semester, and now I'm going to expand on that definition a bit by what I mean by perception. So some of my very favorite scriptures, favorite in the sense that they strike a deep chord within me as being very, very real. And these scriptures, there's a lot of them, actually. Every major prophet about in the Old Testament, it begins in Isaiah 6, and then Jeremiah 5:21, and then in Ezekiel, and then we see Jesus quoting these scriptures, giving them his own twist in Matthew and Mark, in Luke and John. The writer of Acts, Luke, mentions it in Acts. Paul talks about it in Romans. Gosh, this must be a big deal, don't you think? And this is the scripture: having eyes they don't see, having ears they don't hear. Or, alternatively, as Jesus puts it in Mark, having seen they do not perceive, hearing they do not understand. So when I say that writing is an act of perception, it's not just about seeing, it's about hearing. Perception isn't just a visual thing. It's every aspect of our bodies God's created to perceive, to feel, to taste, to hear, to see, even in terms of our inner ear and our sense of balance. So in this class, and for the rest of this week on Friday as well, we're going to play with this idea of writing as an act of perception means writing as an act of hearing and not just seeing. And to do that, first I have a very brief PowerPoint for you to watch when you check in online. I have one of the, an excerpt from a more recent essay by David Foster Wallace that I think is just a brilliant piece of writing, both for what he's doing with language and with sentence structure, but also thematically, what he does with the ladder of abstraction. And then I don't really want to use discussion boards online. I personally detest them. But what I'd like to do is have you use discussion boards, not for you to text something or enter written text, but I'd like you to record and to post recordings. So we're going to do some things with having you record. You're going to read aloud some things. You do it multiple times and then choose the best version and post that. And we are going to go through each other's postings and respond with 2 or 3 adjectives. And that's it. That's the sum of your response on these discussion boards. So I'm making them as interactive as possible and as user-friendly as possible. Okay, and so let's talk then about David Foster Wallace's essay, Shipping Out. This is what I want you to look for as you read it, okay? First of all, note that Foster Wallace uses long sentences. He has some of the most incredibly long sentences that it has been ever my experience to encounter. So note that. He uses long sentences almost exclusively to catalog things. What is he cataloging in his long sentences? How is that working? So watch for that and note that. And then the second thing I want you to look for in this excerpt from Shipping Out is David Foster Wallace's use of the ladder of abstraction. He hangs out at the bottom of that ladder all the time. That cataloging, those long sentences, they're cataloging very concrete details. I mean, perhaps such specific concrete details that it's something that you didn't ever really want to encounter when you read an essay. So he hangs out at the bottom of the ladder of abstraction a lot, just piling up specific detail, concrete detail upon concrete detail. But when he jumps to the top, man, when he jumps to the top, what is he doing there? What's he finding there? What do all those concrete details add up to? In a couple of words for David Foster Wallace. Question mark, okay? That's the whole point of this brilliant essay. So watch out for those things. And then finally, third, so look for long sentences, look for his use of the ladder of abstraction, what he does with all of his concrete detail, where he leaps when he goes to the top of it. And then finally, voice. So all the elements of voice that Clark describes in his chapter, Tool 23 in his book, you are going to find vividly and richly illustrated in this essay by David Foster Wallace. So let me kind of wrap up this video introduction to today's class, going back to the idea of voice and the idea of writing as hearing, perhaps even more so than seeing. So research is beginning to show that that what's happening when people write and what makes a good writer is that they're hearing something. And if you will, the writing is just taking down in words what they're hearing in their mind. And this makes for very vivid and very vivacious, life-filled prose. This is one reason why the greatest thing you can do for your child is from the time they're an infant, read aloud to them. And it's also why I'm asking you to invest in practicing reading aloud and tuning your voice in today's portfolio work and this discussion board, which is really for your portfolio. It's because having ears, they don't hear. And hearing, they don't. And Jesus uses the word understand. So what's happening when you read your own work aloud or someone else's work aloud? If you look on page 113 in your book, and this is in the PowerPoint as well, Clark calls your attention to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things. And each of these 7 things contributes to what we call the writer's voice. And he has those bulleted on page 113. You should go back and read those, study them carefully, and think about them, and think where you see these things operating in David Foster Wallace's voice. What's giving him that distinctive voice? What's the range and the source of his allusions? And he makes quite a few significant allusions. Many of them, I'll just spoiler alert, religious, very subtly religious. Where does he use the word Calvinist, for example? And in one context, what's the level of his language? Is it street? Is it common? Is it literary? Or is this man swinging between all of these? And what does that say about who this person is, who David Foster Wallace is? What does your choice of level of language say about who you are and the complexity of who you are? For Wallace draws from many different sources, obviously. And one time in his life, he was dancing at a disco, pointing to the ceiling and trying to stay alive, staying alive, staying alive. Oh, okay? So big hint on his use of the ladder of abstraction there and where he ends up at the top. What person does the writer use? Do you like to use the word I? And what does that say about you? Or do you prefer the distance of using he, she, and they? Or do you slip into that using the you word? Where do your metaphors, where does your imagery come from? What's the length and structure of your typical sentences of Wallace's typical sentences? Wow. You know, I've already kind of spilled the beans on that. He's going to use really, really, really long sentences, incredibly long sentences, but long sentences with a, dare I say, deadly purpose. What's his distance from neutrality? Is he trying to be objective in shipping out? Is he partisan? Is he passionate about something? What do you think? And when you listen to yourself reading favorite paragraphs from your favorite work from this semester, what do you hear? Is your voice objective? Is it partisan? Is it passionate? And then how are you framing your material? In other words, is your approach pretty conventional, pretty uniform, or offbeat? And what do you think about David Foster Wallace? How is he framing his material? That's the answer to that very important question is a very important answer. Okay, so look at these bulleted things on page 113. Think about them as you record yourself reading 2 or 3 paragraphs from your favorite essays from this semester, or if you have other work you'd like to read, do that. You're going to have make multiple recordings and then choose your favorite. But the whole point of these exercises are for you to listen to yourself and see where maybe you can change the way you're wording something, or your use of long sentences or short sentences, your use of narrative voice, point of view, I or she or they, how you might change these things to reflect a more accurate picture of yourself, to create a more authentic voice. And in the act of reading aloud, recording these oral readings of your own work, finding in there a revelation of your voice. This class is all about finding your voice, and I hope you take advantage of all of the opportunities in today's classwork to do that. Okay, God bless. Bye.